All right, we are good to
This
go.
conference will now be recorded.
I do show that it's 5:30, so I will call the meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Commission of the Village of Mount Horeb to order. First item of business is a roll call.
Fendrick, Weber, and Smith are present. Jackson and Shea are absent.
All right, and I would also note that we have both Jeff Gorman and I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank, Jill Dudley, I apologize, as well as Ben Rohr and Michael Slavny present on the call that I can see. We do have a couple of phone-in callers.
Kathy Hagan.
Kathy is there. Okay, I didn't see your, let's try this. There we go, now I see your name. All right, I see the names if I blow this up on the full screen, so I apologize for that. All right, next item is to consider the minutes of the May 26th meeting. Those did come out to us in advance. Is there any discussion or changes that need to be made? All right. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All right, note that Weber had moved and Smith had seconded. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, so minutes are approved. Next item is number 3, review the draft number 1 of the 2020 Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan with Vanderwall and Associates. All right, Ben, is this, are you gonna step in on this one?
Yep. Yeah.
All right, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I was going to start off by running through the meeting materials packet that was sent over with the materials, I believe, for this meeting. That was a 3-page document. I can't screen share, so I don't know if Jeff, you wanted to screen share or if everybody had it already.
Never screen shared before, so.
I don't have the option as the non-organizer, but.
I think that they can turn it over to you as a non-organizer. I know they've done that in a few meetings that I've wanted to present in.
Well, either way, I can get started and talking through kind of what we have here today. Basically, what we wanted to do is run through the project schedule with you, run through the changes from, oh, look, I do have the option now. Okay, cool. All right. So this is the meeting materials packet here that was passed along, and then I also have the plan up as well that we can look at or reference at any point. The project schedule overall here, we are about midway through this project in terms of the rewrite of the park and park plan. We originally came here on May 26th and presented to this group, basically fact finding, trying to get other information and orienting everyone to the project itself. We did complete draft 1 between that meeting and today. And then we also had a staff meeting in between then and now to review it with staff. And so draft 1 was sent out last week with your other parks information. The plan moving forward is to hold some form of a virtual public open house to review draft 2, complete the final draft following the public open house and that review, and then come to this group again in October to seek a recommendation of the plan. And then it would have to formally move to the Plan Commission and Village Board for adoption. So overall, that's kind of what the schedule is and where we are moving forward. The changes from the 2015 plan, we did update all of the data references, maps throughout the document that you'll see. We recategorized the existing parks based on that conversation we had at the May meeting where we moved the mini parks to a neighborhood park category, which doesn't really affect anything other than how we calculate the local standards. And we did that because we felt that a lot of the mini parks that were previously categorized felt more like neighborhood parks within the village of Mount Horeb, and that the national standards have loosened up in a way where they want us to create local standards. And so in both of those, in association with both of those things, we decided to reorganize the existing parks based on that. We did replace all of the information in Chapter 3 related to the new survey that was done previously this spring that we talked about in terms of a summary at the last meeting. That was a full update from the 2015 survey, but we did add a lot of kind of comparison components and pieces there, so you can easily see how things have changed or stayed the same over time in terms of people's opinions. We retained most goals, objectives, and policies, but did strategically add some new policies to that chapter in order to reflect the feedback we heard from the survey and staff and the commission. Rework the village's park standards in Chapter 5. Basically, this was a kind of standardized chapter that we totally overhauled because of what I talked about, the national standards changing. But we also wanted to compare Mount Horeb to some other similar size in terms of population communities to see what it looked like in terms of the number of park locations and the acreage totals. We updated map 2, well, we updated map 1 as well, but updated map 2, that's the service areas for each existing parks. We did reflect on this map versus the previous version, known barriers, and mostly these are in the form of roadways, high traffic roadways that would be highly impactful to someone who's, you know, could potentially could walk to a park, but crossing a large roadway would be very inhibitive, such as, you know, as a small child or someone elderly who may have a disability. We kept the village's existing park standards from the previous plan, which we did discuss at the last meeting, but recalculated the future projected need for parks in terms of the updated population projections. And this produced new numbers of total needed developed parks for 2030 and 2040. Then we also rewrote the recommendations chapter to reflect all of the different feedback that we've gathered thus far, recalculated the park impact fees, which is chapter 8. This is based off of new numbers in addition to the population changes and the parks changes thus far or over that 5-year period. And then we added a new
Can I ask a question, Ben, on those impact fees? Is that consistent in Dane County, throughout the county? To go up that much?
Oh, in terms of the change?
Yes.
Yeah, in the park plans that Mike and I have done for the Village of Oregon, the Village of Cross Plains, and the City of Sun Prairie, and all of those situations, the park impact fee calculations did go up that significantly. And that was due to a variety of factors, including the updated numbers we got from Real Park Bids, which was a new addition from the 2015 version, in addition to significant increases in costs related to steel and other materials due to things beyond our control, I guess I should say.
Potential developers won't be shocked when they see our impact fees if they're consistent throughout the county. Is that correct?
By adopting this plan, you're not adopting updated park impact fees per se. This is just providing the opportunity to show what the park impact fees could be. So if the village board chose to update their park impact fees for the village to these new numbers, we could compare them to other similar sized communities, but I don't know that those numbers offhand. Mike, maybe you do in terms of comparison community park impact fees.
I think the new calculations would put us near the top of the range if the village board chose to assign all of those costs to the park fees. The trade-off is if they're not part of the impact fee, then they're paid by the general public. But most Dane County communities have not been willing to go this high in terms of the impact fees. But the most important thing is having these numbers in the plan enables those numbers as the top end for impact fees, but adopting the plan does not adopt the new numbers. That would take a separate action on the part of the village board.
Historically, how often have we changed our impact fees? Jeff, Mike, Kathy?
This is Kathy. Historically, they have gone with the recommendation in the core plan. The last couple of times, they have gone right to the penny. So in this instance, because of the significant increase, that might be something that the board wants to consider rather than just approving a resolution that allows us to charge developers based on the core plan. They might do a pick and choose, like Mike was talking about, that they might not do it to the full dollar amount that is being recommended.
Yeah, and I can see an argument both ways on those fees, because on the one hand, we do want to make sure that we're getting an accurate capture of what it's going to cost to provide the parkland for additional residents. On the other hand, we're already at a bit of a park deficit where the recommendation and the ideal has been 10 acres per 1,000 residents, and we're well below that. We're just slightly over 7. So then the question becomes: do we want to place the financial obligation to play catch up solely on new development versus making sure that it's spread more across the entire village? With the I guess the implicit understanding would be that we were probably underparked when those other lots went in, and now we've got to play catch up in general.
Right, so the law prohibits the village from adopting fees that play catch up. So these fees would be based on the 10 acre per new 1,000 residents, but would not do anything to catch up to the 7 per 1,000 current ratio. So I don't think it would be quite accurate to say catch up. This would be the fee that it would take to meet the standard and demand created by new residents.
Okay, and Mike, I think that's the argument to keep the fees at the recommendation then. Just because we'd be digging ourselves deeper as a village if we did reduce that, because we're reducing the amount of fees for that new development, plus we still need to come up with a general plan for fees for raising the rest of the parkland.
Right, and one thing nice about the table that's at the very bottom of Ben's screen right now is you can see that the vast majority of the fee is for park improvements rather than for land. And again, it's primarily has to do with the cost of steel and related components for park equipment. And Ben, we're also not allowed to include in here things like the pool, a new pool. The statutes draw a very tight boundary around what can be included, and I would characterize the equipment as standard park equipment that you would find in any neighborhood or community park.
Good. So finishing up the last bullet point there in the key changes, we did add a park evaluation tool within Appendix D. This was to help staff and the Parks Commission evaluate proposed parkland within new subdivision plats as it's proposed. This was something that in other communities, they've reached out to us and asked if we could include that within the plan. And Mike and I thought it was very applicable to the village, especially considering Mike's role as the village planner in reviewing subdivision plats and seeing where proposed parkland might be included. This tool would allow kind of a quantitative analysis or ranking versus just kind of an abstract, this is what we're looking at and this is what we want kind of thing. So we'll get into that a little bit further here moving on, but I did want to go through some of these key questions here. And obviously, if we have other areas of the plan that we want to talk about, there's nothing stopping us from doing that. We are open and want to talk about any component that you might want to. But I wanted to show you first off the new park map 3. Sorry, I'm trying to pull it up right now and talk at the same time. Map 3. So like I talked about at the beginning, map 1 is just existing conditions. Map 2 is the service areas, which roughly didn't change from the last plan. But this map 3 is the future park locations and facilities, in addition to bike routes and then off-road trails. So the physical number of new parks, which you can see in these pink circles and triangles. The triangle is a community park and the circle is a neighborhood park. The physical number of them did not change from the previous plan, but we did move them to locations based on looking at steep slopes in particular and other environmental corridors to make sure that they were out of that area. So that's the key difference there. The yellow is shown as the future growth area for the village. This is from the comprehensive plan itself. And so that's reflective of why there's new parks needed in these locations where future development is anticipated and expected to go. So we did want to show you this, see if there was any feedback as far as either questions, areas we may have missed, that we should add another new park location or bike facility.
So one question I had when looking at the future park facilities map, pardon me, last year we had some discussions regarding a new subdivision going in at the intersection of 78 and Highway S on the far north side of the village. Right now it looks like there's an N7 neighborhood park marked fairly close to where we had discussed putting a park in that area. And then we also do have a community park designated a little bit further to the east of that. I'm assuming this is just more of an ideal going forward. And if, for instance, there were something come up where we did want to put in a larger park in a certain area when it was developed, this is something that we're not tied to this. This is something where the idea is we put these in these locations, but swapping wouldn't necessarily be considered out of the ordinary.
Correct. Yeah. Essentially, the role that these play is to, when a proposal comes up, possibly for this parcel that you're talking about or the area that you're talking about, as far as a developer wants to develop it, well, we've already identified a park in this location. So that gives the village leverage in saying, we already planned for a park here. It doesn't determine the exact location per se, like you're talking about. Yeah.
Or the exact type per se.
Right.
That's correct. And it's important, especially for the park board members, to recognize is the choice of whether to require a land dedication or the fee and the choice of what land to take, if there is going to be a land dedication, is the villages, not the developers. So often developers will prefer that the village accept floodplain, wetland, and steep slopes because those are more expensive or impossible to develop. And of course, we're interested in playfields in particular and would prefer land with as little slope as possible, except that wetlands and floodplains are still not acceptable. So it does tend to be a negotiation kind of activity. And the role of the park board is to make a clear recommendation to the plan commission and the village board as to whether your preference is for fee or land in lieu. And if you you want the land, then what part of the subdivision or property would make the most sense. And for that reason, it often makes sense to look at the conceptual plat, which tends to be relatively inexpensive for a developer to put together, rather than the preliminary plat, which is approaching getting engineered and is more precise, and cost estimates are typically associated with it. So the sooner the park board gets a look at a preliminary plat, or pardon me, at the conceptual plat in the planning process, the better. And that's part of staff's responsibility to make sure we get your input as early on in the process as possible.
I do want to make a note that I just happened to notice that Mark Weber dropped off of our conference.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with Mark not here. Mark, are you on the phone?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, are you on the? Okay, you're on the phone.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I was going to say as long as we have you on the phone, we're good. But yeah, I had noticed that it looks like you had a video that dropped off.
Yeah.
So obviously we're running right at our quorum. So if either you or me or Ryan drop off, we're under quorum. So I just wanted to make sure that we didn't proceed without being at a quorum. So we'll continue.
Okay. The other kind of key question we had was related to the park recommendations, and this goes into not a great level of detail, but it does talk about each individual park and basically what kind of improvements we're looking for within those parks. And we list these as more of a wish list than something that we know will get accomplished over the next 5 years, because the DNR wants us to provide as many things as possible to potentially be grant eligible. So that's the approach that was taken. What we did is utilized a list based on survey feedback, your feedback and priorities from this group, and then staff reviewed. So we do have each individual neighborhood park listed, each individual community park listed, and then underneath with potential improvements, facility upgrades, things along those lines that could be added within those parks over the foreseeable future. Could be within the next 5 years, could be beyond that. But so if you haven't had a chance to review the document, this is a key chapter to review and make sure that whatever you think is a possibility for the future of some of these parks, we include that as an opportunity.
So this this recommended improvements, this isn't necessarily a in stone. This is a list of what we're going to work on over the next several years. This is kind of an idealized list of, this is a good idea of what to work for.
Right. It's not a capital improvements plan. It would be utilized in conjunction with a capital improvements plan or during that planning process to say, 3 years from now, we want to do something at the golf course. And then within those recommendations, there's some ideas for what the public and you guys and And all of these people who have viewed and worked on this plan have contributed to what is a possibility at the golf course over time. And then obviously, if a grant opportunity arises where you would like to pursue something at a certain park and it's within this list, then you could list that in the grant application as a required component. Within this chapter, additionally, there is the recommended new parks. These are all on map 3 that we just looked through. But I did want to bring to your attention the special use parks and facilities section of this chapter. And these are kind of the big overarching things that we heard, not unlike the 2015 plan. The two top priorities in terms of this section of the plan were an indoor pool / recreation center and a dog park. We refined both of these sections from the 2015 version to update them based on what staff has been working on, what you guys have been working on, and what the school district worked on. But they were the overarching, most prioritized and highly prioritized new special use types of facilities in the community. In addition, splash pad right here below, that was also one of those. Sorry, I forgot to add that, but those are big picture, big ticket items, but those were reflective of the highest priority that we heard from the community and this group and from staff as well. Other unique recreational opportunities. This was a new section that we added to the plan because we got a lot of great feedback in the comments section of the survey in particular that really brought up some new ideas that might not have been considered in previous planning processes, might not want to be pigeonholed into saying that these go into one particular existing park or future park right now, but they're overarching ideas for new kind of recreational opportunities to Mount Horeb. First being pickleball. Obviously, we talked about this at the last meeting. Mountain bike trails was also highly sought after. Campgrounds. While this most likely isn't feasible within the village, there are a lot of opportunities in nearby county and state parks for this. And so maybe bridging the gaps between some recreational opportunities in those might help. Beer gardens was also suggested. If you're familiar, Madison does one in Olbrich Park, and there's other examples in Milwaukee County. This could be a revenue generating source within a new park or within an existing park. Rock climbing walls. This was an interesting idea I hadn't necessarily thought about, but it was mentioned several times in the survey, and I thought it was worth adding in, especially due to the topography changes within Mount Horeb that, potentially if the right site became available, that this might be a unique opportunity. And then winter activities was also something that was prioritized both by this group and survey members. So those were some unique new opportunities that I thought should be included within this planning or this plan that weren't previously in the 2015 plan. All right. Park impact fees, we did already touch on this a little bit, but if you have reviewed Chapter 8, that's where all of these kind of in-depth calculations are listed and displayed. They did go up, and that is relationship in with the new projected population and household increase, in addition to more needed park space over the next 10 years. And then also, like Mike had mentioned, figure 8.2 is this projected improvements for park types. And this is where the bulk of that cost arose from in relationship to the more sophisticated numbers and analysis we used in this plan, but also the cost of the raw materials like he had mentioned. And what this leads to then is figure 8.4, which is what was in the materials that you've already seen, where the identified land dedication in terms of the change in that would be 644 square feet per dwelling unit. Fee in lieu of land would be $488 per residential dwelling unit, improvement fee 2,100, and then the total impact fee 2,668 per dwelling unit. Was there any additional questions or comments on that? I know we already covered that a little bit, but. Okay. Then the park evaluation tool, that's at the very end here in Appendix D. I did want to run through this because it is new and it is unique, and we wanted to get your input, especially on the criteria itself. So what we did is listed 9 different criteria that could be evaluated in looking at a new parkland or a piece of parkland within a new plat, and then assigned a scoring system to that, which associates it to either a number value or associated chapter listed, something listed in this plan, something that's missing from the current village, things along those lines. So we do have number 1 being identified on the map 3 that we just talked about, being a highly ranked component of that. Also the percentage of constrained land, which Mike talked about, environmental corridors, wetlands, things like that. Stormwater retention, we did want to include that we didn't want new parkland to be in the form of a stormwater pond or a stormwater retention area because of the usability factor there. Accommodating active users. So this would be in terms of either it meeting a new recreational opportunity within the community or an identified need within the community based on local user feedback. Number 5 is providing a new connection to an existing park or trail. That's a high priority, or a medium priority, I guess I should say. Filling in a service gap within map 2, addressing goals, objectives, and policies within the plan, protecting valuable natural resources that could be on site, and then finally providing an amenity or opportunity that's not offered currently by the village of Mount Horeb. So those were the criteria we chose. If you do have feedback on any criteria we may have missed or that we should explore in more detail, I'd love to hear some feedback on this tool in particular. Okay. Well, if you do get a chance to look over it in the coming weeks, let me know. And if you do have any comments or questions, feel free to email staff or myself or Mike if you want to talk further about it, or you've kind of seen something that we missed or should have gone into greater detail on. The final component of what I wanted to talk about tonight was this public open house, which is the next step in the process. And how we had proposed this at the beginning of the process has changed dramatically due to COVID. So we wanted to get your ideas. Basically, we're obviously going to do some version of a virtual meeting format, or potentially a virtual opportunity for engagement, I guess I should say. But we did want to get your ideas. You know, what have you guys seen that's worked out there? What would grab your attention as maybe a member of the public to join a meeting or participate or learn more about this process? You know, tools, how best can we learn, get people involved, but also get feedback from the plan itself?
I think one thing that helped us with the responses on the survey is that we made a pretty good effort to get that broadcast through the community via social networks or via the local newspaper. So I think what we would probably want to do is we would also want to, for any sort of virtual open house, we probably want to make sure that we made it fairly easy for people to find the information for it, rather than have an obscure link on the village website linking to an agenda. Maybe we just post a direct link to the draft of the plan, and the first page is the information on how to connect to the meeting. I know in the past we've only generally posted the agendas for our meetings on the site. Maybe in the case of this open house, we would include the draft of the plan as part of the agenda that's posted, just to make it easier for people to get to. And then as we do post it on social media, make sure there's a direct link to that on the posting. So that people don't need to go hunting for it. I know there was another board that had a meeting last night, and it sounds like people they filled it anyway, but it sounds like people weren't necessarily able to easily find the link. So I think as long as we do that, we'll have a good chance of people getting the link to it. And I think based on the response to the survey, we should have a decent turnout. People were interested in the survey.
Also, can we directly email the people that provided their addresses via the survey?
Yes. Yeah, that was going to be an additional tool that I thought would be really useful. Is we gathered approximately 300 emails from people at the end of the survey who wanted to participate in the remainder of the plan. And so I think whatever the meeting link looks like, that should go directly to them in addition to the community-wide broadcast like we did with this survey. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and I think what I would do is make sure that when we do email them, just email them a link to the documentation rather than the entire documentation itself. Let them decide if they want to download it from there, I guess.
Agreed. Okay.
Ben, this is
Yes.
Ben. This is Kathy. Just a quick question. So, how does that work if somebody is watching a virtual presentation of this? Are we going to request any questions ahead of time, being that they would have a link to the actual draft, or are you going to take them in real time, or how does that work?
Well, traditionally, how we've done a public open house is Mike and I have stood in a room and watched people come in and answer their questions individually. That's not really the case with the virtual component. So we're going to have to rethink the whole format of what that meeting looks like. I'm kind of spitballing, throwing out ideas right now. I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to gather input from the most people. And sometimes it might not be easy for someone to come to a meeting, even if it's virtual, and or feel like they've been heard. And so potentially there's an opportunity there to maybe, record me doing a short, 5-minute summary of what the park plan is and what it can do and why it's here and the feedback we've received so far. And maybe we post that with the link. So if people find out more information, they might want to be more involved. And then additionally provide, my email or another email that they could directly send a comment or question to before that meeting. So I think there's going to be a lot of moving parts here, and I don't think we figured out exactly what it looks like, but I did want to get feedback from the group here if they had ideas on how it might best work.
Yeah, I do like the idea of maybe a pre-recorded introduction that people could view prior to the meeting, just to maybe that'll answer a lot of the preliminary questions that people would have.
Mm-hmm.
At the same point in time, yeah, I guess how do we strike that balance between the usual participation, which is an open house where people are free to ask questions, with the virtual format? I don't know if it's necessarily fair to have you wait around for, if we set like an hour or 90-minute period, have you sit online anticipating that someone might log on at the 89th minute seems a little counterproductive. On the other hand, if we're ready for it and that's what we're expecting, then that's what we do.
Right. Yeah, it's To be fair, it's a learning curve for us too. You know, how we've traditionally done things or are more used to in-person stuff. This is a new task that we need to solve. And so I think we're going to take a variety of different options and try to figure out what makes the most sense to involve people and get the most feedback we can. So that information will be out. We'll work on setting a date for that meeting with staff and the format of that meeting with staff over the next couple of weeks, and get that out and broadcast to the community in probably mid-August or so for that September meeting. So
Is it,
look
is
for
it
that.
possible to do it outside? Can we do it at the Grundle shelter?
Yeah, I don't think we could do a virtual and in-person type thing. It would have to be a strictly in-person at that location. But I would have to talk further with staff and seeing how comfortable they felt with inviting people to an in-person meeting. I don't know what their internal policies are for that right now.
I know the other problem with getting into September is we're getting a little, if we're getting like a 6:30 or 7 o'clock start time, we're hitting the point where we're only going to have a little bit of daylight left. Also, at least as of right now, I think we're limited in Dane County, even on outdoor events, we're limited at 25 or fewer people. So I think that might cause us a problem with an outdoor. I'd love to do it outdoors if we could, but I don't know if we can yet. I mean, if we see a reduction in cases, maybe that's an option. Maybe we start at like 5 or 5:30 instead of a 6:30 or 7 start. But I do like the idea of reviewing the park plan in a park.
Agreed.
If it's possible.
Yeah, that was our original thought when we came into this process, is kind of piggybacking on some event that was already occurring in the park or that would attract village-wide participation, and then setting up kind of shop in that location and gathering information. So that's not an option right now, but maybe there is some way to work around doing some sort of in-person thing, but we'll have to figure that out and look into it more. But we are bound by, obviously, right, the policies of Dane County and the village. So was there anything else that we did not cover today within the document that you either had questions on or that you wanted to bring to our attention, wanted to talk about further?
No, I think the questions that I had after reviewing through the documents the past couple of days, I think have mostly been answered. Some of them I think are just more long-term hanging questions that I'll probably refer to staff. But yeah, no, I think any questions that I had have been answered. Anyone else with any questions on the plan?
Okay.
All right, I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take that as our questions having been satisfied.
Nice job, man.
Thank you. And if you do come across anything, feel free to email us. Like I said, we're always willing to hear if you do get into the document further, any other ideas. We still are in the draft phase, so we can make changes where we need to. Overall next steps, we're going to do a lot more enhancement to the document, make it look prettier, add some photos, graphics, cover pages, things like that, and then bring it to the public in that format. And we'll call that draft 2. We'll figure out what the open house looks like and get that notice out as soon as possible and try to get as much feedback from that way. And then we'll plan to be back here in front of this group in October to seek a formal recommendation of what we're calling the final draft at that time. And then it'll move on, obviously, to the Plan Commission and Village Board after that. But we appreciate everybody's time tonight and appreciate letting me screen share here. That was very helpful.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, yes, thank you very much, and feel free to continue to work with Jill and Jeff, as well as Nick Owen in the village office, to try to coordinate what what the next event is going to look like. As we all know, this year we're kind of inventing things for 2020 as we go. So thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
Thanks.
All right, with that, the next item on the agenda is to consider the community garden sign request by the Mount Horeb Area Community Garden Group. I know we had talked about this at an earlier meeting. I want to say, was this the February meeting where we initially talked about this?
I think so.
All right. Jeff, was this something you were working on, or was this something that Jill was working on, or?
Yeah, Lynn Messenger and Carolyn submitted that plan to me. I included it in my packet, a little sketch of what the sign is supposed to look like. They've been working with a sign shop on that. They had hoped to get a final design from the sign shop prior to this meeting, but they did not. So the sign itself will be approximately 5 feet wide and 30 inches tall. It'll be real similar to the other park signs that we have throughout the village. They did ask if the village would purchase the posts to install the sign on, but I told them I thought the garden group should purchase the posts. But our department, I'm willing to install the sign for them. And they are looking to install it kind of on the northwest corner of the gardens, which is an area, I guess that makes sense because it would be highly visible from the road at that point. I think that's about all the information that I have.
Okay. Jeff, I'm pretty sure you probably sent it to us, but I can't find that right offhand. I have about 10 documents open, but that's probably why I can't find it. Do you remember which doc? You said it went in on your.
I had a meeting packet that had my report and a few other things.
Okay, I apologize. Yeah, I'll.
Right after the capital improvement information.
Okay. I'll see if I apologize. I'll see if I can find that quickly.
I apologize. I wasn't at the meeting where we discussed this. Our cost is 500. Is that correct, or around there?
That's what I got.
Okay.
February meeting.
They're looking at getting a grant for it, so I don't think the final cost is known for sure yet.
So would there be any financial outlay for the village beyond that $500 that we've agreed to?
No, just our installation time.
All right, I think it makes sense. We've already roughly agreed to the 500. If that's what our capped cost is on that, I'm fine with that. We haven't agreed to it officially, but we've already discussed it. I would entertain a motion to approve the sign with the village cost of that sign being $500 plus the installation of the sign. Do we have a motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Sorry, my apologies. Having some issues. I'll second.
All right. Motion and second on that motion. Any further discussion? Looks like Ryan's having some difficulties with his audio at the moment. He's now muted.
All right, sorry. I think I have it figured out. My apologies.
Nope.
We already made this motion.
Yeah, so we just, all we have to do is I was just waiting for Ryan to get back on to do a vote. All those in
We
favor?
made this motion in February
We did to approve it?
to fund up to $500 for the sign with input on design and installation from staff. Motion carried.
Oh, okay, well then I guess there's nothing for us to consider then.
We were just gonna look and see what the sign looked like, I believe. Jeff, you
Consider
got,
this the input from staff then.
All right, I guess at that point then, since there is a motion pending, we should probably withdraw the motion just to clear up the record.
I withdraw that motion that was approved in February 25th, 2020.
All right, and Mark, thank you for bringing that to our attention. I obviously was present at the meeting, but did not remember the exact details, so thank you very much. All right, on to the next item then. Item number 5, consider the capital budget requests and 5-year capital improvement plan. I'll turn this over to Jeff and or Jill in which order they would like to present.
You're just smaller. You want to go, Jill?
Sure. You guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
I just have 2 items. I sent them to you the other day. Sorry, it was they were a little late getting to you, but we renovated the recreation department, as you know, and there were a couple of areas of that renovation that were taken off due to monetary budget constraints. So I am just looking to add those as a phase 2 and a phase 3. So phase 2, I have down as the front entryway. That porch area is what I'm talking about. It's pretty dingy and it smells funky in there, and it's just not very nice, not pleasing to the eye. And then the other area is just, new doors, window on the side entry. We are also talking about adding another entry point from the porch and a path along there. So those are the 2 areas that would be phase 2 for the 20 grand. And then phase 3 would be the new staff restroom. So that would be right off of our copier room. So right now, we use the restroom across the way. We go through one of the multi-purpose rooms to use the restroom, which is fine. But if there is a class going on in there, we do sometimes interrupt that. So those are the 2 areas that were left off that I am looking at, adding back to see if we could get those finished at some point. So for 2021, it would be the phase 2, so the porch area and then the front entry area with the floor and the doors. And then phase 3 for 2022 would be the staff restroom.
I think both of those phases, they make sense. They make that area more of a permanent location for the rec department, which I think is something that the rec department probably has been in need of since moving from the old location in the old police department. The only question that I had, and I understand that the benefit of trying to put it into 2 different phases, the only question I would have is if there would be any economies of scale realized by trying to do it, to do both projects in one fiscal year. Would we save any money as opposed to having to have 2 contractor crews come out twice and have some of those same costs for demolition, hauling away, things like that? Would we see enough benefit by doing both projects at once to justify trying to do it in 1 year, or do you think it's small enough that or rather the costs, the benefits would be small enough that it makes sense to spread it out over two.
When I talked with Nick regarding these two, he seemed in agreement with breaking them up. However, I guess we didn't really discuss that aspect of it. So, you know, if we do them all at once, that would be ideal. I just was thinking, you know, kind of going in phases so that it wasn't all at once, and you know, with the price and that kind of stuff, the budget impact. So
yeah, no, and I understand that too. I just, you know, if we're not going to see much scale in savings by trying to do it all at once, it doesn't make any sense. But you know, if we would save, for instance, 10,000 by doing the two projects at once, it would make sense. I don't think we're going to save 10,000 by doing them both at once, but if there would be some sort of economy of scale there, it might be worthwhile to look at doing them both in 1 year. But I'm okay with going at it 2 years too. All right. Any other discussions from Ryan or Mark?
Nope.
All right. Jeff, we'll move on to your proposals. And just for everybody's information, I did also see these last night during the Public Works meeting. So I'll hold off on any questioning I might have until Mark or Ryan have had a chance to look things over.
All right. I'll start with the 2 pages that say 2021 capital budget requests. They're listed for you, and as Jason mentioned, I presented these to the Public Works Committee last night. So the ones that are highlighted in yellow are really the ones for the Park Rec and Forestry Commission to review, and there's 3 of them. The first one would be replacing our 1-ton small dump truck that's used primarily by the Parks Department, or the park side of things. It's a 2012, and it does have a plow on it right now. So I'd like to get basically the same thing with a plow on it. I would go with a stainless steel dump body so we don't have to deal with that rust all the time, and put a V-box salt spreader on it. That way we could easily salt a lot of our parking lots and the alleys. Right now, we salt the alleys with our big plow trucks, and it's difficult to get those big trucks in some of the alleys. They're pretty tight. And that the way they're set up, they also spread to the left, not in the center of the truck. So a V-box spreader would be able to salt right down the middle of the alley, not off to the side. So that's one of the big reasons for getting that V-box spreader, salt spreader on there. The second item I have is continuing our emerald ash borer treatments for next year, which would include 85 street trees on 3 different streets: Vista Ridge, Shenandoah, and Fairway Street. And thirdly would be the aquatic center improvements that we've already discussed, and this commission has already approved moving forward with that. And I'll just jump back to the EAB treatments quick. One thing I think that maybe we should discuss at an upcoming meeting is taking a closer look at our EAB plan and our EAB treatments, because right now we're spending roughly $7,000 to $9,000 every year on EAB treatments, because those trees have to be treated every other year. So I don't know if we want to keep continuing to do that, or if we maybe should look at starting to do some scheduled or phased removals of some of these trees over a period of years, so that's not a real drastic where we come in and cut down, you know, a whole bunch of trees on one street at one time. But that's something that maybe we should look at as we learn more about EAB, because right now in the village, we're probably at the peak of the infestation. There's a lot of big dead ash trees standing around town. There's a lot of them that have been removed already. And I don't really see that getting better in the next 5 to 10 years anyway. So I just thought I'd bring that up as maybe a potential future agenda item.
Just out of curiosity, I know you indicate treating 85 trees next year. And if you're saying they have to be treated every other year, does that mean there's around 170 trees right now in the village that would be susceptible to this, or is there more?
I think we're a little over 200 right now.
Okay.
We just finished treating this year's group, which was like 7 different streets roughly. And I think there was about 112 trees. And there's about 7 trees that we're treating in our parks. There's only 7 in the parks, but most of them are street trees.
Yeah, I like the idea of having a bigger discussion on this at a future meeting. And I think one of the things that we'd probably want to look at in that future meeting is what a phased replacement plan would look like from a cost perspective, what the work would be involved to get the affected trees replaced, and then also looking at what kind of a phase period do we want. Are we talking 3-year, 5-year, 10-year? What are we looking at? I think that's some of the things we'd probably want to talk about at that future meeting.
Yeah, agreed.
Can I ask a street question?
Go ahead.
What the heck's the school doing there on Garfield?
They're doing
What is
a
that street
pedestrian
project?
bump out. They're doing a pedestrian bump out, and I think they ran into some engineering issues there. That's why it stood so long, you know, with the some of the road ripped out. I know they cut the asphalt out yesterday, so I think they're looking at paving that soon. Maybe they paved it today, I'm not sure.
What's the theory or the logic behind one lane?
Well, it's 2 lanes, but it's narrowed to slow traffic. And I think they also might be incorporating the rapid flashing beacons at that intersection too. But it's
You mean
basically
between the
designed to
schools?
slow traffic.
Okay. Did they ask permission to do that?
They did discuss it with the village, yes.
Did they get approval?
They did. Yeah, we discussed it with our village engineer and Nick and myself. And we looked at some different options, and we thought that was the best option because one of the other options was like one of those big bumps that you drive over. But that would have stopped the flow of stormwater down the gutters. So we thought this was the best option.
It'll be interesting when the snow flies.
Well, that was my biggest complaint or fear was our snow plowing.
All right, are there any other questions or discussion items for Jeff or Jill on their capital budget requests?
Just a quick question regarding the pool. So the aquatic center improvement plan is finished after 2021. Do you foresee anything else that might come up in the years following that? It would be big items, maybe, maybe add to the capital plan.
Well, in our 5-year plan, we have in 2022 painting the wading pool and plunge pools. But most of our major components, our mechanical components anyway, are going to be in pretty good shape after next year. What I think we need to start doing is start planning whether or not we're going to replace that big pool, because I think we're looking at less than 10 years for sure for that big vessel, and I think it's time to start the planning process for that.
All right, thank you.
Do you foresee any expenses either saved or incurred because of the more minimal use of the pool this year?
I do not. Everything still has to run. The pumps still have to run 24/7, and I really don't see any savings there, I guess.
Okay, so basically the expenses are what they are regardless of the volume of use. We're not going to see any increased maintenance or decreased maintenance is probably the best way to put it.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. With that, since this is a discussion of the requests, I think we would be entertaining a motion to approve the requests and capital improvement plan as submitted by the Recreation Director and the Public Services Director as it relates to Parks and Recreation expenses, or Parks and Recreation and Forestry, I guess.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. All right.
When is this meeting with the all the committees? When do we find out what the budgets, what were approved and what weren't?
Those start usually, I think, in I know for sure the October timeframe is when we have all of the meetings. I'm guessing that that they'll probably start working on the budget in earnest. Is that going to be next month or September when Amy starts working on that?
I'm trying to pull up the schedule right now.
I am too, Jeff. Let's see who finds it first.
I'll look also.
Since we have 3 people looking, I'll just wait. But I recall from last year, I think most of those meetings occur in October. That's the public hearing portion, of course.
I don't have it in this folder.
That's
Okay,
okay.
got it.
We'll know in the fall sometime.
Okay, I got it. Let's see. 12th, the village administrator provides preliminary 2021 operating budget to department heads for review. Finance starts looking at them September 30th. And then October 7, 14, and 21, if necessary, they go through and work out any of the kinks, any of the cuts, any of the additions. And on November 4th, 2020, the administrator is going to present the budget and the capital improvement plan to the village board. The board sets a public hearing for November 18th, and they hold the public hearing on November 18th and adopt the budget.
Thank you.
All right. Jill, Recreation Director's report.
Okay. So as you can see, well, I can see that our numbers are low, so I'll let you know that our numbers are low for participants in our programs. That's kind of what we expected. And so we were just happy that we were able to figure out a way to run the programs that we did. We moved some of our programs outside. So cheer camp, that was moved outside. Art camp in the park wanted to be inside this year, but we kept them outside. Dance boot camp was going to be inside. So we really tried to utilize our parks. In fact, I was there one day last week at Grundle, and we had 4 different programs going on there. So, you know, we really tried to utilize outdoor space as much as we could. So our soccer program started this week, and that's usually, we have about 260, 280 kids. And as you can see, we had 171. So still had some participation, and parents have been, you know, very grateful that we're running, you know, certain programs, even though we, you know, can't play games and things like that. We keep it more instructional. They're very happy that their kids are able to do, you know, at least something. And our upcoming programs, we don't have, you know, a lot for August, because that's normally a time when families go on vacation and then school's starting. But hopefully, and Ventures in Kindergarten will not be running now because we're not able to get in the schools. And since the 100% virtual, we will not be able to do that. We have a meeting with Public Health, Dane County Public Health, on Friday morning with various rec departments to find out about flag football. That's kind of our main big discussion point with them. And then we have a league-wide meeting with other departments regarding flag on Monday. So we have a lot of people calling. Tackle football was canceled. Youth tackle football was canceled. So we have a lot of people calling, especially this week, with wanting to get their kids in. What is it going to look like? We just don't know yet. But, you know, my guess is that, you know, we're still not going to be able to play games, but that we'll do more, you know, instructional based, you know, and we have a survey out to our coaches for that to see who, you know, is still interested in participating if it was just instructional. So we are, you know, it's kind of up in the air right now, and it is quite stressful, and it has been. Swim lessons, numbers way down. The kids that are there are really enjoying it. Our instructors are so good, and they're just so knowledgeable, and yet, you know, we just don't have many kids, which is really sad. But for general programming, I'm working on fall programs, but again, it's really tough because I just don't know what we're going to be able to offer. Megan and I have been discussing adding some more virtual programming or just fun events for the community, whether it's, you know, go find something in a park or another whodunit type thing. We got a lot of positive feedback from those. Of course, you know, those wouldn't bring in any revenue, but, you know, so we're just kind of in a wait and see on those. We decided to move our movie in the park to the fall in hopes that we can have, you know, if it reaches the phase 3 and the 250, Culver's is still on board with sponsoring that. So we're happy about that. Aquatic Center, starting in August, we're going to be canceling eliminating our 4:30 to 6:30 time slot. We have not been getting many people during that time at all, and it's just not worth, you know, the staffing costs for that. So we're going to be eliminating. So we will just have the 2 sessions in August. We had that hiccup with the motor of the circulation pump, but we only had to close for 1 day. But then, you know, because of that, the slide will be out of commission, which I really wasn't planning on opening that anyway. The staff really wanted to see it open, but that's just fine. We had to cancel our Splash Bash event, and as you can see, the revenue is way down, and we're still trying to get some people, to come to the pool. It's, been a great place for kids to go who have been going. But I guess I was assuming we were going to get more kids there or families there than we have. We did do a family night on Sunday where they could bring in pool floaties, and we had some games. So, and that brought in, more people. So we're hoping that maybe in August we can do a few more of those, even though we're only open for a few more weeks. I did get an email from the chamber wanting to utilize Grundle Ball Field for their fall market event, because it's going to be, I think October 3rd it was, early October. So they're looking to utilize that because they only can have 250 people. So they're going to be selling tickets, and Jeff said it was fine to use the ball field for that. So again, with flag football, I'm just not sure what we are looking at there, but it's something where we can look at alternate locations if we have to for that. And that's about it.
Couple of questions that I was thinking about. With tackle being canceled, has that resulted in any large increase in registrations for flag for 4th, 5th, and 6th, and I guess 7th and 8th as well? Or is it just a large number of inquiries at this point?
Well, now tackle is only 6th, 7th, 8th. And we have had people contacting us for those grades, saying we have coaches, we want, players. We have a bunch of players now that we can line up, because the email just went out this week. We've been getting inundated with a bunch of people, asking about that. But again, we can't play games. And then they said, well, if we go somewhere in Iowa County to play other flag teams, or, green, or, anywhere else, I said, we can't do that. It's a village. Follow the guidelines. So.
Yeah, Jill, you were fading there, but I wholeheartedly agree. We can't, as a village, try to skirt the guidelines in our county. So thank you very much for towing that line.
They're trying. They're trying to see what they can do. Because
if they want to go organize their own private league or whatever, the village can have no involvement in it. And I don't even know if they were to do that, if we could even give them the use of our park space.
So yeah, we have been getting more and more people interested or calling, and coaches who've coached tackle. And I said, well, if we can't play games, we may do more instructional based, and if they want to do that, that's fine. It's something for the kids. We also Megan and I are, toying with the idea of possibly like a afternoon, for this first quarter of school, because it's virtual, an afternoon, maybe for an hour, Monday through Thursday, out in a park, just to get kids out and, do some different types of activities. But we're just not sure, if that would fly and if it would be worth all the effort that we would need to put in. So, yeah, that's where we're at for that.
All right. Ryan, Mark, any other questions of Jill?
I was just curious if you have seen the July numbers for the pool, how that looks compared to June.
I have not yet received them yet, but I mean, because we started later in June, of course, the numbers are going to be, pretty low for June. But I mean, we definitely have had people there. It's just not a lot, but Yeah, July numbers will be a lot better than June will be, because we were open for the majority of the month. But yeah, I do not have those quite yet.
All right, thanks.
All right. I think Mark indicated he didn't have any questions. So Jeff, over to you. Oh, Jeff, you're muted.
Dang it, I thought I could get through a meeting without doing that. Yeah, Jill touched on it a little bit, but we did have a few issues at the pool, mechanically anyway. When I did fill it this spring, initially there was a large leak in the big pool, and I did have Badger swim pools come out and dig it up, and it turned out it was actually an 8-inch PVC line that must have been damaged last fall when they installed the drain valve, and during the backfilling process they must have pushed down a little too hard on it and cracked it. So they did repair that on June 12th. They covered all the costs associated with that. So that was fixed, but then we had a circulation pump that controls all the features in the wading pool, like the mushroom and the fountains and stuff. And that went down. We could have bought a new one. It was not repairable. We could have bought a new one for $4,700, but given the fact that we're in a shortened season, we decided just to do without those features for this summer, knowing that this winter or next spring we'll be getting all new pumps and VFDs and everything. So it didn't make sense to spend that kind of money on that. I do have a Eagle Scout doing a little project at Hofstadter Conservation Park. But he's going to be building some benches, replacing the school prairie sign, and then doing some buckthorn removal. Should be this week yet. We're going to be we won't be installing, but Play in Wisconsin will be installing a new basketball goal at Lions Park. So that will be a nice improvement there. Pro Roofing is supposed to be replacing the roof on the Garfield ice skating shelter. They were going to get started last week, but they haven't started yet. They're a little behind because of some weather issues. I mentioned that our EAB treatments were done. Slater Dieterich out of Soft Prairie did that treatment for us. 114 street trees and 5 park trees. They did note there's about 5 trees that they did not treat because they were not in very good shape, and we decided not to invest some money on treating those, and we will be removing those trees in the near future. We also have been doing some removals this summer, about 25 street and park trees that we've taken down. We have ordered most of our trees for this fall. And other than that, we've just been really busy keeping up with mowing with all the rain that we've had this summer, keeping up with the mowing and spraying weeds, and different maintenance projects throughout the parks. That's all I had.
Perfect.
All right. Yeah, I don't have any questions. Ryan, any questions for you? All right. So with that, we're on to item number 8, consider items for future agendas. I think an item for a future agenda will be the discussion on emerald ash borer and the affected trees. Between now and then, I suppose, come up with some ideas and potentially what a work plan would look like if we did lean towards replacing rather than treating trees in a longer term sense.
Yeah, I think that would be good to look at. I probably won't be able get a whole lot together in the next couple months. So might be something that we look at later this fall or winter.
Well, and I think this is the sort of thing that we could take the time to bring it up, but also do it with the idea that it's going to be a longer term discussion, that it might take us a few months to flesh out once we do start discussing. And we kind of have to take in mind what the upcoming budget requests would be going forward in future years then too, based on any recommendations out of there. Anything else to add on a future agenda? The one thing that I was thinking of, but I think we've now kicked the can probably to 2021. Jill, is the discussion about field use for football teams going forward. I don't necessarily see I don't see a new field coming in use by next year, unless we all of a sudden had a developer who was very interested in building quickly. So I think maybe something to keep in mind, and I wouldn't even say this is something for this fall. Probably this might even be a next spring type question, maybe to discuss again with the school and the football club, just trying to figure out what the plan is once the tackle program does get going again, because maybe I'm an optimist, but I think by this time next year, if not sooner, life will be back to a more normal sense, if not fully normalized. So I think we should.
Yeah, so I think they are going to want to. Yeah, they'll be talking with the school for sure for next year, because the only space really they could be is near the football stadium there, looking at all options. So yeah, they'll definitely be discussing that with them.
All right. Anything else? All right. Next item is to set our next meeting date. If we were to look at the fourth Tuesday of August, would that be roughly the 25th? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, the 25th.
I suppose pencil that date in as the next meeting, and if there's not sufficient items to meet, we'll just reschedule for the fourth Tuesday in September then. All right, item 10. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much for everything tonight, and we'll hopefully be able to meet in person at some point here going forward.
Yeah.
All right,
Bye-bye.
have a good night, everybody.
Thanks. Have a good night.